Your ideas help move this country. You are.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the American Innovator. You know, every 30 days a significant opportunity passes in front of every human being. You've heard us talk about that before on the show. And this week we traveled down to Walla Walla in the Richland, Washington area to blow the water off of cherry trees. Imagine that. I've never heard of doing anything like that before. But my good friend Morgan from Lohman Helicopters, he's an expert. His crew does exactly that. They blow the water off the cherry trees, particularly in the last 2 weeks. Just as the cherry is starting to mature, it's very important they don't get too much moisture, otherwise the cherry will burst and the entire harvest will go to waste. And the farmers are very particular, and they're literally watching vigilantly over the fields.
Harvested in 5 or 6 more days, so they're growing really every day. And so what happens is it gets in there and the water seeps down in there, and it'll look.
Oh, so it gets down in the stem is what happens.
It gets down in the stem, and it'll look just like this. It'll look just like that. As soon as the sun comes out, in 2 hours, it'll look just like that if you don't get this water off.
Oh, very, very quickly.
And then tomorrow, when the cherry's growing, it'll be like that. And the next day it'll be freaking carnage. I mean, the carnage will just happen, and it'll just be.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean that's a perfect example of what will happen with the rain.
So it's really great to see how the farmers all work together. They call one another, they tell them they've got a helicopter that can fly from field to field. They sign the contract real quick, and then Morgan flies over the field at very low altitude and just blows all the water right off the trees. And then the farmer goes down and inspects the cherries to make sure enough water has been taken off, and then Morgan can go by for a second or third pass. Here I show you what it's like to actually be down below, so you can see the velocity that the Huey puts out. It's just unbelievable. It's like a hurricane when it comes over, and everything gets wet. I'm soaked, but the trees are dry because so much water comes off the trees. So it's a pretty cool and interesting process. And here I'm down on the ground with one of the farmers just driving through the fields, inspecting the cherries, and making sure everything's great. Now those are dry cherry trees. One thing's for sure, when you have a helicopter, you're mobile. I'm in love with helicopters. These are just amazing birds. These are all made by Bell. There's a Jet Ranger and a Huey. The Huey's a much bigger bird, much more powerful, and actually can do about 5 rows of cherries at a time, where the Jet Ranger does about 4. This is the Jet Ranger right here. A little smaller bird, both of them are turbines. Now we're going across the river over to another farm. This is Pat's farm, and we land right in his driveway. Now in this case, you're going to get another ground perspective, because I'm actually going to go with Pat in his 4-wheel drive. We're going to drive through the fields, so again you can see what it looks like. Now his cherry fields are a little different. They're on a hillside. He has a beautiful farm. He raises apricots and cherries and a few other things. And the farmers are just great people. They're just down to earth, and we're having a great time here. And of course I'm always using the iPole everywhere I go, because it gives you that incredible perspective. And I'm shooting with the Azteca camera here. It's just awesome. There's the cherries. Now these windmills are really interesting too. They eliminate the frost. They have big, huge engines in them. They're all on timers, and Pat's setting them up. He's actually going to turn it off as the helicopter comes over. And here's an example of a cherry that's split out. And only about 5 to 10% of Pat's crop so far has got splitting in it. So it's not good, but it's still on the verge of being acceptable. So we're just trying to get all that water off and make sure none stays there so the cherries don't swell. And here's another pass with the Jet Ranger coming over, and you can kind of see how much water comes off, and you'll even see the water get onto the camera lens there because it's blowing off the trees and onto the ground. Well, that's the American Innovator for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Remember, every 30 days a significant opportunity passes in front of every human being. The question is, are you awake? Well, thank you, Morgan, for this amazing experience. I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. And life has an adventure waiting for all of us.
The American Innovator has been brought to you by FastCap. To hear more, just go to theamericaninnovator.com.